Welcome, everybody. It is a delight to have you here, and we have a very special guest for you today. I'm thrilled, tickle pink, because Derek Rydall is a fascinating man. He's really somebody that I've been longing to share with you. He really is, you could describe him as a new generation of spiritual visionaries. Okay, he fits right in there, and he's a thought leader. He's changing the way people view their reality. And not only, of course, how they view their reality, but what their reality shapes up to be. So he's a best-selling author. He's written a couple of books, one called Emergence, which is fascinating. It's 7 steps for radical life change. I mean, who doesn't want that? He's also in the process right now of putting out a book called The Abundance Project. It's 40 days to more wealth, health, love, and happiness. Well, Derek, he's been doing this for years, and he has a really interesting past that I'm going to ask him to give us his real deep down biography. But let's just say this, okay? He's trained top executives from Fortune 500 companies, including American Express and the Walt Disney Company. He's empowered leadership communications. He's done coaching of celebrities and media professionals. He's really been around the block. He has his own podcast, the Emergence podcast, and he has a global platform of thousands of people worldwide. So I imagine that a lot of you listening today are very familiar with Derek. If you're not, you're in for a real treat. Derek, I would like you to tell us from your own words who you are. Your personal bio, please.
The bottom line, I'm a lover of life. I'm an artist and a philosopher, have been since I was a kid, basically always seeking the truth, and then whatever I discover, wanting to find some way to express it, whether it was painting, art, music, drawing, acting, writing, etc. I've done it all. Been a professional singer-songwriter, professional screenwriter, professional actor, obviously a professional author and teacher. But as a student of truth and a seeker of truth and understanding life, it definitely wasn't an easy path. I struggled for a couple decades trying to improve myself. And after a couple decades of self-improvement work, the only thing I'd really improved was my ability to describe why my life was so messed up. So I got very good at that. I had a lot of growth in my ability to say, this is why I'm this way, this is why I'm that way. You know, when I was 10 and my dad saw my report card with all A's and 1 B and said, what's with the B, son? I could point to all of that, but there wasn't a whole lot of real improvement. In fact, I got more frustrated. I felt more inadequate. And it's like digging yourself out of a hole. The more you dig, the deeper in the hole you get. And it eventually caused me to become addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I almost died from an overdose. And you would think that would have been enough to make me realize, what's wrong with this picture. But my brother always said I had a thick skull and a big head. And so when the universe hit me with a 2x4, it wasn't enough to snap me out of it. It just sort of broke into a bunch of splinters in my hospital bed in the ER room, where I had been treated after almost dying from an overdose. And I thought, I just need to work harder. I need to work smarter. I need to try to attract things more, whatever. And I just redoubled my efforts. And things got a little better for a short time, as they often do when you re-engage. But soon thereafter, I found myself doing a movie in Jamaica, and everything fell apart again. Had a bad breakup, on-set romance. They fired the director, fired almost all the actors. They didn't fire me, so that was the good thing. But we had to redo the whole movie. And I was so I couldn't catch a break, it felt like. And I went diving in a coral reef on my own, which was my first mistake. And then I prayed just to get lost from everything above, which was my second mistake because I didn't realize how powerful my prayers were. And very soon I got lost in that coral reef and I got stuck. And I was trapped in this underwater, what looked like a booby trap tomb out of an Indiana Jones movie, giant rows of spiked coral that were inches from my throat, my neck, my stomach, that could puncture me at any moment and just eviscerate me. And so I had to swim with the tips of my fingers just to stay afloat so I wouldn't go onto these spikes. I couldn't touch the walls around me. They were covered in some of the worst fire coral. One touch was like 1,000 jellyfish stings. So I couldn't touch anything. I had to swim like this. I had to breathe in short staccato breaths or I would have been punctured. And nobody knew I was coming, and it was starting to get dark. Nobody knew I was out there, so nobody was coming, and I was starting to get dark. And I tried to negotiate, God, if you get me out of this, I promise to go to church on Sunday. And I went through all kinds of tapes in my head, and eventually the tapes ran out, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. I really knew I was going to drown in that reef. And there was a moment finally of surrender, and it was unconditional. It was, I'm done, I'm exhausted, I can't fight this thing anymore, and I let go. And in that moment of real surrender, there was a flash, there was a flickering and a flash, and I saw that this self I'd been trying to improve for so long was really a fictional character. It was an amalgamation of parental fantasies and peer pressure and societal conditionings, and that it was just a construct and nothing I could do would ever make him enough. And then simultaneously I saw that around this self, there was another self. And this self had never been hurt, so he didn't have to be fixed. And he was already whole and complete, so he couldn't be improved upon. That actually self-improvement was an oxymoron. The self was already perfect. Now again, this was just a flash. And it took me some time to really download what had happened in that moment. But in the next moment, I was standing outside of the coral reef, out of the pool I was stuck in, looking down to where I'd been stuck for that whole time. The exit was inches from me the whole time. I just couldn't see it. And I realized this was a metaphor for my whole life, that I've been swimming in this maze my whole life, following all these brightly colored things. And I was trapped and I was drowning and I was gasping for air. That was really my emotional life. But something broke or snapped in that moment. It's like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, and I couldn't put him back together again. It drove me to try to become a monk, and that didn't work out too well. After a week of fasting and silence for the first time, I freaked out so badly that I broke into the monk's kitchen and stole food out of the refrigerator. So I ended up cloistering myself in my apartment and going on this inward journey, and that's when I discovered it went to, ultimately called the law of emergence. And this whole model of life is emergent. So life's not happening to us, it's happening through us, it's coming from us, that there's a seed of truth and purpose and potential planted in the soil of our soul, just like the seeds that are planted everywhere else on the planet. And it emerges out of us and in our life as the conditions become right. And that allowed me to go from being broke and nearly suicidal and living on 19-cent boxes of macaroni and cheese to ultimately traveling the world, $1 million homes, building a business, all that good stuff. And that was ultimately the source of my last book, Emergence. And go ahead.
I got to interrupt you for a sec here.
Please.
You had an experience, okay? By the way, I can totally relate to that. I did a lot of diving in Cuba and stuff like that, and I sometimes in some positions that were pretty freaky.
Yeah.
You had an experience where you were able to kind of, I call it like tapping into that infinite energy, tapping into that oneness, tapping into that perfection of your soul, realizing that, yeah, I'm complete. I'm here. I'm perfect. I don't have to chase all the baubles and the whatever. I don't have to try to please my parents and this person and that person and all that jazz.
Exactly.
Not everybody gets that.
Correct.
Not everybody has that. So how, I know people that are on a self-improvement gerbil page, and they're going over and over and over and over and over and trying to do that. How can you help somebody have that flash, have that insight? You're not a guru, so how can you help them, bring them from the darkness into the light?
Or am I? No. Well, yeah, and that's obviously the advantage when somebody has an experience like that and they come back and they can codify it in a way that's got a framework and a process so that you don't have to almost drown or die a couple times to do it yourself. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, there's step-by-step ways to cultivate your own awareness of this truth of your being. And so that's what the whole emergence process, what I ultimately called emergineering, which is about engineering the emergence of your true potential. And part of that journey is understanding how to read the clues that are already everywhere in your life for what is that seed of truth, that seed of potential and purpose planted in your soul. And so I guide people through how to discover what that is. And then like a gardener of your own life, how do you, once you understand what that seed is, how do you cultivate the right conditions for it to begin to blossom, for it to begin to unfold in your life? And so that's what I walk people through is step by step, how to discover that seed, how to cultivate the right conditions, and how to bring forth a bountiful harvest in your life, in any area of your life, in general. But then what happened, and that's the whole subject of the other book, Emergence. And then what happened is as I was going along this route, having lots of successes for people and for myself, I once again bumped into the challenge of abundance and ended up almost getting evicted and losing everything. And I was very angry at God, the universe. I was like, how is this possible? I've done everything right. And now again, I'm facing this wall and this crisis. And I remember sitting down in my meditation chair, my faux leather meditation chair, and laying the gauntlet down to the universe, kind of like Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump, where he's on the top of the mast, shaking his fist to the heavens and telling God, he's like, bring it on. I pretty much did that. And I was like, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to move ever until I either know the truth about this stuff or I realize it's all BS. And I sat in that chair and the daylight turned to dusk and the crickets came out for their nightly chorus. And somewhere I wrestled with my demons and angels, and somewhere late in the night or early in the morning, I had an epiphany again. I had another experience. And this voice spoke to me and it said, you made your savings account your source, your God. And it literally said this, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And I half expected to turn around and see Charlton Heston holding a tablet or something. And it went on to explain that you have made this your source. And I was afraid of losing my savings account, so I was creating credit card debt and all this stuff. And then I ended up maxing out my credit cards and losing all my savings. And it said, whenever you make something outside of you your source of safety, security, support, supply, life is set up to fail you because it's not your source. You're not to lean on resource, but to lean on the source within you. And that's what began the abundance journey and ultimately the subject of the Abundance Project.
Okay. Well, when we're looking at, let's bring it down to something practical.
Absolutely.
For our listening audience, okay? How, for instance, can you possibly create abundance in any area of your life, no matter what the conditions that you're facing? Because there are people that, with the amount of electromagnetic radiation that we're bombarded with in this age and so on, people are coming with cancer. We have autistic kids. We have all kinds of things happening exponentially, pandemics of obesity, this, that, whatever. You've got a lot of strikes on the plate. So what do you do if you're in the midst of this? If you're like being pulled 99,000 different ways with all kinds of physical illness, family illness?
Yes. Yeah, well, first of all, physical challenges are one of the most difficult because you can't get away from it, right? Financial challenge you could forget about sometimes, distract yourself with a little Ben and Jerry's or a binge watching a show on Netflix. Relationship challenges, same thing. Work challenges, same thing. So, and I know this because I've experienced myself personally a lot of physical challenges and have been at what I thought was going to be death's door, but wasn't. I haven't even told those stories. But it's one of the most powerful paths of transformation if you know how to work with it and understand that and actually get to the place where my prayer, which I call the prayer of awakening, which is more than I want to fix, change, or heal this or anything or anyone, I want to know the truth that makes me free. I want to know myself and life the way God sees it, or the life sees it, or the universe sees it, whatever your belief is. When that becomes your priority, I want to wake up. I want to know the truth. I want to be free more than I want to keep struggling with problems and managing and manipulating whatever my condition is. When that gets on the side, 51% or whatever, now you become a candidate for these kinds of insights and breakthroughs and discoveries. It's kind of like the story of the two monks that are walking along, the young monk and the mentor monk, and the young monk's like, how can I know God? How can I know truth, master? And he's been asking for a long time and on this walk, and finally the master takes the monk and shoves his head under this water and holds him there until he's about to drown. And finally at the last minute takes the monk out of the water, and he's like, takes this big gasp of air. He's like, why did you do that? Are you crazy? I almost drowned. And the monk says, when you want to know the truth as much as you wanted that next breath, you will find it. And so that's enough. And physical challenges have that potential. And so when we're suffering from intense physical challenges, it's almost always a clue that you have a deep soul, that you have a deep purpose. And just like with a tree, the deeper the roots have to go into the deep darkness of the soil, the higher the branches are able to grow. Deep roots, tall shoots, deep roots, rich fruits. So this is the potential when you're struggling. So we could have a whole conversation just about that because I know it intimately. I have friends and family that have suffered from cancer and all kinds of things. But so I have compassion. I have tremendous empathy when people are suffering and struggling in any way, but especially physically. But here's the thing. The principle doesn't change, whether it's a physical challenge, a financial challenge, a relational, emotional, or otherwise challenge. The principle is still the same. And the principle is that everything you need to be all that you were created to be is within you. You brought it all with you. The world can't give it to you, and the world can never take it away. A physical challenge can't take it away. A financial challenge can't take it away. So, and this is what I walk people through in the new book, The Abundance Project, as well, is what I call the great reversal, which is understanding that life doesn't happen to you. It happens through you. It comes from you, and everything is with you. You brought it all with you, the divine inheritance. You have a trust account in the universe with your name on it, and it has everything you need. But we haven't been taught how to get access to that and how to begin to get it out and express it in our life. We've been taught to judge by appearances and then let the appearance determine who we are, what's possible. We look at our bank account, our business, our body, and go, based on this, I equal this. Based on this, I have this, I can do this, I can be this. And that is exactly the opposite of the great teachings, whether it's Jesus or Buddha or whoever. So that's the first piece.
It makes us reactive. Okay.
Exactly.
We become reactive instead of being creators and creating our own reality, because we really are the directors of our own play.
Exactly.
So that's kind of fun. Now, I've been working with a lot of millennials.
Mm-hmm.
These are 18 to 34-year-olds.
Nice.
I haven't ever run across a group of people that are so impatient. And it's like they want it yesterday. Whatever it is, they want it yesterday.
Yes.
And one of the things that you say is that you never have to wait for anything again. Yes. Well, I would love to be able to share that with my millennials who are like chomping at the bit. They want, they have scars and they want to get rid of their scars like just like that,
Right.
And if it doesn't happen overnight, it's like total depression.
Yes.
So explain to me, how on earth can it be that we never have to wait for anything ever again?
Yeah. So, by the way, I understand those age ranges. I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son. So I've been working with them for a long time. And of course, they don't listen to me. They don't want my advice. So I'll just refer them to you. So there's a couple of things. we have to lay a little bit of the foundation so that people understand it's not so completely out of context. But the first one, of course, is what I was describing. Everything is within you. Whatever's missing is what you're not giving. Whatever you meet is what you're bringing, because life's not happening to you. It appears that way, but it's all happening through you. It has to come out of you. If you want something more or different to come into your life, you have to bring something more or different out of you. You have to let something more different come out of you. So that's the first thing. That moves us out of being a victim and moves us into, as you said, being a creator. And ultimately, beyond even just being a creator, but being a channel or an instrument of a bigger idea, a purpose. Life is trying to use us. We're more like a branch of a tree than the tree itself. And the branch doesn't make itself happen. It doesn't make the fruit. It's a channel, an instrument that shows what's really going on with the tree. So we are instruments or channels or branches of the great tree of life. And so all of that is in us and wants to come through us in a unique way. So that's the first piece. The second piece is we have to understand that life, that we were designed to create the same way that all of nature and all of the universe was created. In other words, the Big Bang came out of what? Out of nothing. Out of no thing came everything. All the stuff in our life came from non-stuff, which always surprises me when scientists who are stuck in the dogma of materialism talk about how consciousness and intelligence and all these things are emergent properties of materiality. They believe materiality is the foundation of life. I'm like, you also believe in the Big Bang too, right? Yeah. That came out of nothing, out of no material, everything. And they're like, and they have a hard time really reconciling that. So we were designed the same way. We're designed to manifest, to create out of the same substance that the whole universe was, which is invisible and immaterial. You could call it energy, you could call it prana, you could call it spirit, you could call it consciousness, but that's actually how we were designed to create. That's what Jesus was trying to teach, or Buddha, or the great masters. They were saying, don't judge by appearances, don't look to your situation to determine what's possible, look within, get in touch with what's really in you, the power that's really in you, and from there, if you even just have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. From there, you can, heal. You can do whatever you want. And then Jesus was not the great exception. He was one of the examples saying, do what I'm doing. You can do what I'm doing too, and better than this. So that's the first thing we have to begin to remember and come back to. It's hard to get this because life has been conditioning us for a long time, and every day bombards us with the messages that say we're victims, that say, when you lose this weight, then you'll be worthy. When you get that scar, then you'll be worthy. When you learn all these things in college, then you can have a good living. When the economy turns around, when there's a new government, all of these messages that tell us to wait. Wait for when I get that job. Wait for when I get that promotion. Wait for when I have enough money in the bank. Wait for when I get outer validation. Then I'll really show up. Then I'll be loving. Then I'll be generous. Then I'll be creative. That's what I mean by we don't want to, this is what I call the Great Weight Loss Program, WAIT, because you're not designed, whatever you're waiting for, you're actually waiting with, and you're weighing it down, and it's time for us to get off our fat assets and start getting in the game. And we'll talk more about specifically how do you lose all that weight? How do you start generating and circulating the life you really want to live without waiting for anybody's approval anymore?
Yeah, I'd like to dig a little deeper in that, because we're on the same page.
Yeah,
right?
I can tell.
Totally.
Yeah.
And this is the type of thing that I have been bringing to clients and friends and people and anyone that will listen, to be honest.
Yes.
It's if we start creating validation markers that are external, it just creates a situation that is a very uncomfortable situation, and it's not reality. It's an illusion.
Yes.
So one of the things that I found very interesting about your work, Derek, is that you actually look at the hypnotic wealth spells that people are under. and not just well spells, but we're under a lot of different
A
hypnotic
lot of hypnotic
spells.
spells. Yes.
Yeah, and so how can people snap out of these
Yeah.
belief systems that they've taken on board, these habits that they've adopted, this sometimes cloak of misery that they're clinging to because it's what they know?
Exactly. Well, what is a hypnotic spell? A hypnotic spell, we all know what hypnosis is. You can be hypnotized to believe there's a white poodle on stage and you're chasing it around trying to catch it. And then the people in the audience are watching a crazy person chasing nothing. So you can see things that aren't there. They've done it where they make the person believe the plant is suddenly full of snakes and they're afraid of just a house plant. They make you believe you can't move and then you can't. So a hypnotic spell can make you see things that aren't there and can make you not see what is there. And so just by understanding that and understanding the power of suggestion in that regard, they even did a study years ago until they made it illegal where in movie theaters, they would add a frame of like popcorn and a frame of soda and you wouldn't even know it. It's subliminal, but you suddenly get hungry for popcorn and soda and they saw the concessions go up. And then people realized it and they outlawed that kind of subliminal marketing. But so we have to first understand and accept we are being hypnotized. We have been hypnotized. And that means now we have to start questioning what we're seeing or not seeing. So if you think you don't have opportunity in the world, just know you've been hypnotized to not see the opportunity that's all around you. If you think there's a wall in front of you or a block, just understand you've been hypnotized to see something that isn't really there. So it's like the elephants that were trained from babies being tied with a hard rope or chain, and when they get old big enough, that rope just have to feel the tug on their neck and they think they can't move, when actually they could sneeze and take the whole tent down if they wanted to. But they don't even try. It's called learned helplessness. And like the movie The Truman Show, if you all remember, he's trying to get out of the city, but then he's afraid of the water, the waves, the road, all these conditioned responses. But none of those things are true. And the elephants have even died in circus fires because they didn't think they could move. And they could have just run away without even a breath. And so that's what's happening for us, that we're literally standing in a sea of opportunity and abundance, wisdom, genius, talent, love. It's everywhere, and we're blinded by these abundance blind spots or hypnotic well spells. So that's the first thing. So that allows us to start to snap out of it and go, okay, at least I know now that I'm sleeping. At least I know that I'm having a dream. This is not reality. And that is the beginning of waking up. And then we have to then begin to get curious. So what is really going on? What is really here? And that's when I talked about that prayer of awakening. And I walk you through step by step some of the specific truths. And we've been talking about some of it, which is everything is within you. It's not out there. Nobody outside of you is your source. You are the source. And like in Indiana Jones, the invisible bridge doesn't appear until you start stepping out on it. So you have to begin to have a vision for your life that's juicy and inspiring. You have to begin to make a real plan to go for it, not once you think you have enough or are enough, but starting today. And a lot of the things people are waiting for, the validation, the clarity, the confidence, the courage, doesn't actually come until you step out, until you say yes, and keep walking across that invisible bridge.
You know, that reminds me so much of a quote that I made a long time ago with a meme, about making the decision, planting your flag in the sand.
Yes,
and
yes.
saying, I'm going for it. Even if I die trying, I'm here.
Yes.
And then the universe has your back. God is right there behind you. Everything, all the forces gather around to help you succeed in what you choose.
Yes.
One of the things that I find with the people that I'm working with, the teams and so on that I work with, I come across people who have forgotten how to dream. They've completely lost the ability. And it's like pulling it out of them slowly, slowly with the right questions and so on. They get them to, well, I'd like to travel. Well, where would you like to travel? Oh,
Exactly.
do you like the beach? Do you like the cities? I like cities. Okay. What do you like about cities?
Exactly.
So we go over these types of things.
Exactly.
And really, excuse me, I'm just going to unplug my phone.
No
It's
problem.
really fascinating the way that it works. It's thrilling, to be honest with you.
The universe is calling you guys right now, so don't let it go to voicemail.
And
Don't let it go to your voicemail.
my question to you is, how does somebody live their dream? First of all, we have to get them to see their dream. And
You have to get them to see it first, yes.
How do they live their dream if nobody around them supports them? If they've got dream crushers right, left, and center that are just going, oh, come on, get real.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And a lot of people do have that. In fact, understand that most of your environment has been designed to keep you where you are, not to get you where you want to go. That's how it works. So you can't, if you really want to, like I said to people, I've been talking to people recently, if you want a new year, you have to have a new you. You can't have a new year without a new you. If you don't become different, your life can't become different. And you also want to surround yourself with the people, places, things, inside and out, that represent where you want to be, not where you've been. So that's the first piece. You have to design a way of life that is congruent with the life you want to have, with the life that's seeking to emerge in you. As we talked about with Emergence, again, first of all, you got to know what seed you are. What's the seed that's trying to unfold? And then once you know what kind of seed it is, you know how to cultivate the soil. You know what you need to become to be the right conditions for the unfoldment of that potential. And I talk a lot about that in my book, Emergence. And in the Abundance Project, I then show people specifically how to begin generating the abundance in whatever area you want that will allow you to begin creating those conditions and begin moving in those directions. So you have to have clarity. You don't have to have crystal clarity. You don't have to know every detail. You just have to know the direction and what it is you want. And you're right. Most people are conditioned to think small and to only be willing to dream when the conditions to fulfill that dream are already there. And of course, that never happens because that doesn't happen until you say yes to the dream. We've got it backwards. I remember, and I've demonstrated this over and over and over again in my own life and for my clients around the world. I remember when I wanted to get my dream home. And I was living in a little condo with my fiance, and or actually we were married at the time. And I didn't have the money to afford a house. And when I even began to talk about it, my parents, my friends were like, you're crazy. What are you doing? And I began doing all the stuff that I teach and really discovering what is the vision of my dream home? What is the vision of that next level of my life that was trying to emerge in me? And I began to articulate it, to define it, to refine it as best as I could, and do all the things we've heard, write it down and all that. But then I began to work on becoming the person that I would be if I was already living that. So the habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing that I would be engaged in if I was already there, so that I wasn't waiting. This is how we don't wait. I wasn't waiting for the condition. I wasn't waiting for the house. I wasn't waiting for approval. I wasn't waiting to even have the money. I was stepping out on the bridge as far as I could, becoming the joyful, confident, powerful, generous person I would be if I was already living it. And then I began to treat the place I did have as if it was already my dream home. I began to fill it out with beauty and appreciation and keep it clean and flowers, and did whatever I could to fully fill out this place. Just like if you're a gardener and you've got a potted plant, if you're the plant and you're in a little pot and there's bigger pots and then there's the whole garden or the field, if the plant had self-consciousness, it might go, gosh, why do I have such a little pot? I want to be in the bigger pot. And it doesn't grow and fill out the pot it's in. Well, what's going to happen to that plant? It's going to stay in the small pot. But if it goes, all right, this is the pot I've got. I have a vision for the big pot and eventually the field, but I'm going to take advantage of what I've got. I'm going to dig into this soil. I'm going to use this soil. I'm going to spread my branches as far as I can. And then what happens? The gardener replants that pot into a bigger pot and a bigger pot and a bigger pot. So I began to do this. Fill out the moment, lean out, lean in, stretch out, reach up. I began going and looking at houses, talking to realtors. And there was part of me going, you're crazy. What are you doing? You can't afford this. But then here was the key. At a certain point of doing all of that, I activated or became more congruent with that frequency. And suddenly it was like the veil lifted. And I could see that I would get the house and how I could get the house. And a couple months later, we were moving in.
Okay, how did you do that? How did you stop the little doubt maker that started saying, Derek, how do you think you're really going to do this? You know, get real, and your parents and everybody else, you know, reinforcing that doubt maker. How did you take that doubt maker and what did you do that all of a sudden it was gone?
Yeah, well, it wasn't all of a sudden gone. And the doubt and the fear may never be gone. And you just basically say, ultimately you want to begin to understand that your potential is always greater than the problem you're facing. And, you know, instead of telling your little God about your big problem, you start telling your little problem about your big God. You know, instead of thinking of what you're facing, you start telling those appearances what they're facing. They're facing you. They're facing God. They're facing a power that's infinite, inexhaustible, that has all the answers, and that's you. You're an expression of that power and that intelligence. And so you don't ask, how's life treating me? You ask, how am I treating life? I'm at cause here, not that condition. In fact, a condition is just a coagulated expression of previous thinking. It actually has zero power. It's like the wake of a boat. You know, you don't look at the wake of the boat to determine where the boat's going to go. The wake's not pushing the boat. The wake is the evidence a boat's been there. The thing driving the boat and steering the boat is the person currently, presently giving it energy and directing it. That's what determines its direction, not the wake. So our appearances don't determine our direction. So that was the kind of mindset and the kind of thinking I had to work with. And I had to work with it every day. Like, this is a practice, people. This isn't something you just listen once, get inspired, and think you're done. It has to become a practice with commitment, and then it becomes a habit. And understand, your conditions do not determine your destiny. Your character does. Your character is built out of your habits. Your habits are built by what you do consistently with commitment.
That is so much fun.
Because,
yes. You know, when you do start creating new habits and when you do start creating new beliefs, when all of a sudden you come face to face with somebody who has a scarcity mentality or somebody that's in victim mode or something like that, it's almost like you're on a foreign planet. It's like you have to scratch your head, and it really takes you back because you become so used to moving forward with this anticipation of great things to come because they're all there for you. I think that's wonderful, Derek.
You not only feel expectation, but it's like we were saying before, you're no longer hypnotized. So it's like you're in the audience now watching a person chasing nothing around the stage or being afraid of a plant. And you're like, why are they afraid of a plant? What are they chasing? Because you're not hypnotized, but they are. And then you have compassion, and then you actually have the capacity to wake them up because you're not hypnotized.
You know, it's really kind of fun. Well, I'm repeating myself, but it is fun.
It is fun.
Yeah, it's like
if it's not fun, you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean it's not hard at times, but I call it, instead of like homework, I call it home play or work play, because the universe is not serious. The universe is a dance of ecstatic delight, forever unfolding its infinite magnificence and glory and beauty and abundance. It's not taking itself seriously. That doesn't mean there's not challenges, it's not hard, but absolutely play and adventure must be a part of what we're doing here.
I define myself as being addicted to bliss.
Yeah.
And when I don't feel bliss, and believe me, sometimes I don't feel bliss, it's like, whoa, I really notice it. I really notice it. And I want to get back to it ASAP. Now, another thing that I wanted just to tap into you while we've got you here is like, I see a lot of people that compartmentalize their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have their health in one spot, and they oftentimes, might be yoginis or, really raw foodists, whatever. They're really into their health.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have their wealth in another compartment. And it's like never the twain shall meet. And wrapped around wealth are things like wealth is the root of all evil. It's not spiritual for me to be wealthy. Wealthy people are unhappy. A whole bunch of things, that toxic, dirty things surrounding.
Yes.
And yet you're saying that they're intimately connected. You want to address that?
Absolutely. And that's one of the big challenges for heart-centered, spiritually minded people is the reason most people became heart-centered and spiritually minded is they were wounded by the world, wounded by the power structures of the world at a young age. They got the message this world isn't safe. They got the message that being really in the world wasn't safe. And so they retreated into their mind, their heart, their fantasies, their spirit. And we often call that their core wound, but it was really the core initiation. It's what activated their quest because of the pain of not understanding how this world works. And it didn't make sense. Why is daddy working so hard and he's never here? I don't want to be like that. Why, when we have money, suddenly there's more problems, or we don't have money and there's problems? Or why do I look out at the world and see all the pain people with power and money are causing, or hear my parents talk about it, or my religion talk about it? I don't want to be anything to do with that. So we say, I'm not any of that, and we retreat. So we create these shadows around really a whole dimension of ourselves. And then we go into the world and try to be good people, helpers, do-gooders, people pleasers, lovers, spiritual, creative, and then we become the spiritual person that's broke, the artist that's struggling, the good do-gooder that's helping everybody else but isn't getting help themselves, et cetera, et cetera. And at a certain point, initially it pays off, but at a certain point it stops working, and we're suffering and we're struggling. And what it is that we have these shadows around these very core elements. We have these false beliefs, these hypnotic spells. Like, again, the religious thing about, money is the root of all evil. It actually isn't even the whole sentence. The statement is the love of money is the root of all evil. But even that doesn't get at what the thing is saying. As I was talking about before, all stuff comes out of non-stuff. The substance of all life is invisible. Wealth is invisible. And so when the farmer sees the trees and all the fruit is gone, the farmer doesn't say, well, all these trees are broke and cut them down. The farmer knows the trees are just as abundant as they ever were, and in due season will produce another harvest. The fruit is not the wealth of the tree. The fruit is the symbol of the wealth of the tree. And so what this is trying to show us, the statement is saying, when you love the symbols of wealth, that is the root of evil. Why? Because if you think a dollar bill is your wealth or your source, or you think a stock or a bond or an economy or a job or a parent or a spouse, what do you begin to do? You begin to give your power away to them. Or you resent them and hate them, or you try to manipulate them, or you manipulate yourself. And the bottom line is you can't be who you really are. You can't be truly empowered. You can't show up and be and do what you're meant to. And all conflict and problems ensue from the belief that something outside of me is my wealth. All conflict or my source of safety, security, supply. So this statement is saying the love of the symbols of wealth is the root of all evil. If a tree had self-consciousness and it was like, I'm not going to let go of my fruit, then I'll be broke. Then I won't have anything. What would happen to that tree? First of all, if it could talk, you would think that was a crazy tree, right? You'd be like, tree, what do you need with all that fruit? That's not going to do you any good. You have to circulate it. And, if the tree held on to it, it would rot. And then eventually its branches would stagnate and then it would die. So, and not be able to produce any more fruit. So this is what happens with these false beliefs, right? We get all these as we're growing up, and then we're hypnotized and we're conditioned, and now we're trying to find a way to survive in an illusion. you know, and hold on to my money or go out and strive and struggle to get more money or whatever. And that's what I'm bringing people back to. The real source of wealth and abundance, the real substance of it, and the step-by-step way to start expressing and circulating more of it in your life, regardless of the conditions.
Okay. Let's take an example. Let's say that somebody has done everything they're supposed to do. They've been the good little soldier. They've done what's expected. They've gotten a degree. They've gotten a prestigious job. And now they're stuck in this job. And it's a job from hell because it's golden handcuffs and it's health benefits and this benefits and that benefits and a pension and all this jazz.
Yes.
And they've got a family now and all these people depending on.
I know it well.
So they're stuck. How can they possibly activate their greatest potential?
Yes. So, you know, I remember some master saying something like, it's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter heaven. And he was speaking to this. He was speaking to the golden handcuffs, you know, to the belief that this was your power, your value, your worth, your support, because they believed their source was these things. They believed that these things were their wealth and their security. And you're stuck now. And you can't do the real work to connect to your real power and your real freedom as long as you believe that. So yeah, that's the bane of many human beings stuck in a cubicle or even stuck in a quote unquote great job. And they're looking around their life going, I have everything everybody's striving for. Why am I so miserable? Why am I so unhappy? And because they've been conditioned and they bought into the illusion of, you know, the peer pressure, the parental fantasy, the societal conditioning of what's successful, what's the right way to go, what's going to make you safe, you know, get a good degree so you can get a good job, so you can make a good money, so you can eventually retire when you're 65 plus so that you can die 3 years later. Like what? So it's completely backwards, and we have to really get that the story we've been told is a lie. It's false. It's not true. It's not based on truth principles at all. And we have to get back to that. And this is about waking up from those hypnotic spells. The really good news, just like I did with the dream house where I couldn't afford it, was living in a little dark apartment and grew myself out of that into the next level, I did the same thing working a job from hell, where I was a waiter. I was having to wait on tables, trying to make a living, blah, blah, blah. I had come from being a successful actor, having that spiritual experience. Everything fell apart. And then I went broke and I had to go get a job again. But I had a much bigger desire for my life. But I felt I had to have this job to survive. And what I began to do is what I talked about, again, what I talk about in the book, is first of all, you have to have a vision for your life that's bigger than your flat screen TV. Okay, let's just say that. Most people have bigger flat screen TVs and they do visions for their life. It's why it says in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish. It doesn't say where there is no vision, people have a bad day, they don't lose those last 3 pounds. No, it says they perish. And if they don't literally die, they become part of the Walking Dead, right? There's a reason why there's all these zombie movies and TV shows. It's a metaphor for the zeitgeist of our current consciousness, which is we're all walking around just following lockstep with the collective trends and beliefs, and we're zombies. We've lost our brain. Somebody has eaten our brain, literally, and we are not thinking for ourselves. We're not connected to ourselves, and we're waiting for somebody to come save us, and we have to look in a mirror and realize that's the person that's going to save me, the one that's looking back at me. And so that's the thing. We have to realize this, really get it. So you have to have a vision for your life. You have to have a vision that inspires you, not a vision not what you think you can do or should do or have to do, but what do you deeply, deeply, truly desire? And like you said, it might take a little practice to draw that out because you're not conditioned to know what it is. You know, somebody say, well, I just want more money. Okay, I'll give you $1. Now you've got your dream. I just want more time. Okay, show up to this call a minute late. You've got a minute, you've got your dream. And we're not clear enough. So you have to have that. Then you have to, as I said, you have to understand the principles of successful living, which is what I'm teaching. These are principles. It's principle. It's not personal. If you have a seed and you plant it in the soil and you follow the conditions of the law of emergence, it must grow that seed. It can't go, well, you come from a long line of seeds that never really amounted to much. I'm afraid I can't grow you. You have self-esteem issues. I'm afraid I can't grow you. No, it's a principle. When you're aligned with the principle, it must work. If you don't know how to swim or didn't know for all your life and somebody shows you the principle of buoyancy and how to align your body, the principle of buoyancy must float you. It can't say, you've been sinking for a long time, man. You're going to have to keep sinking for a lot longer to catch up. The minute you understand and apply the principle, it must operate. So that's what we're talking about, and that's what I'm teaching. What are the principles for living an abundant life, for living a purposeful life, a powerful life in every area of your life? You were designed for it, but you have to understand the owner's manual, and then you have to actually apply it. And that's what I'm showing people.
You have given us the owner's manual, okay? And I love it. I absolutely love it. So I'm going to bring up this screen for a sec, and I'm going to share what this book looks like, because I'd like everyone watching this to have an idea as to what we're talking about. Now, nod your head, Derek, if you can see this.
I can see it.
Excellent.
Front and back cover. The only thing is this was your advanced copy, so when it says right there on the screen, Advanced Reader's Edition, you guys will get a different version. You'll get the hardback, and it won't say that. That's the only distinction.
Yeah, so I want to make this a little bit bigger here so you can see. You can see what Derek's talking about. You can see the roots, how the roots are going down. And
Yes.
you can see the abundance of fruit. And you can just know that that tree, the potential that that tree has, each one of those fruits that are lying there on the ground has a bazillion trees in them.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's just, there is so much abundance there. Does not need to be any scarcity at all.
Yes.
Now,
And bazillion is a real number.
Yeah, vegetillion. And before you even think about like racing off and going to Barnes and Nobles, going to Amazon or whatever to grab this, don't. Wait. Because Derek's put something together that is phenomenal. He has $1,200 worth of bonuses for you. Okay? He does not just want you to have the book.
Yes.
He wants to ensure that this book actually gets put into practice, that it's not another shiny object that you go and you grab for.
Yeah.
It's
not shelf help, as I like to say. It's not,
Yeah.
you don't just put it on your shelf and walk by and say, ooh, look at that nice book and a pretty shelf. It's not shelf help. It's about real self-help, real development.
Exactly. And it's high time, okay? There is not one iota of excuse. And by the way, all excuses are equal. So it doesn't matter what you're pulling out for an excuse that you can't possibly have the life that you desire, because you can. Exactly. You can 100,000 times over. And I'm so glad that Derek has put this blueprint together to show us how. Now, you can go to longevityrescuer.com/Derek, Derek. And longevity, of course, is LONGEVITY, rescuer, RESCUER.com. It's all squished together, /Derek, DEREK. And you can find this book. Okay? Is that going to break the bank? A book? No. But you're going to get $1,200 worth of incredible, amazing bonuses with this. And I want you to tap into Derek so you can start mainlining him. Okay? I want you to experience what it would be like to have a transfusion of transformation, so that you can actually take wherever you're at today, whether it's health, whether it's wealth, whether it's relationships, whatever it is, whether it's happiness, and you can just flip that right around and start experiencing something different. Really. And you know, this for me has been my life quest. And when I find somebody that's a shared like mind, it's like, yippee-yay, let's go for it. So I'm going to stop the screen share now. I'm going to hand it over to you, Derek. I would love for you to leave the listening audience with some parting thought that you would like them to take away from the time that we've spent together.
Absolutely. First thing I want to say is that the bonuses are not like filler bonuses, that you're going to get to be in the Abundance Project Mastermind and Book Club, where we're going to work on your abundance project, your unique one, and you get to be on live coaching calls with me and get real support. Raise your hand, I'll work with you. And people pay tens of thousands of dollars to get that kind of support, and I'm giving that to you for free. So check that out. There's a lot of real live coaching, bonuses, programs, etc. Again, to make sure you really get results here, this really is your year if you're willing. Life is on your side, but you have to be on your own side here. And it's a very small step to have to take to make a big difference. So what I want to leave you with is an understanding that I can understand wherever you're at, you might be struggling or suffering. And it's hard. Anybody that tells you this isn't hard are either lying or naive. It's difficult to actualize your true potential, but it's much more difficult to not. It's much more painful to not. As the Gospel of Thomas says, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. If a branch doesn't bloom, what happens to it? It gets pruned. So it's way more painful to not go for your dreams, to not say yes to your yes, and than it is to do it. But it also takes a commitment, and you're worth it. And I want you to know that we're not talking theory here. Nothing I've shared here today is just some clever little theoretical concept. I don't share anything that I have not done myself and not gotten the results I've gotten or gotten out of the out of the challenges I've been in. So this is from almost dying several times, struggling with family and marriage and children and businesses and economies and ups and downs and failures and triumphs, and what I've discovered that really works. That's all that I'm giving you and teaching you. And it's not just worked for me, but has worked for tens and tens of thousands of people around the world. So I hope you'll give yourself the grace, if you do nothing else, take at least one thing from this talk today and put it into practice today. You must practice. You must put it into action. And then secondly, teach something that inspired you. Share it with at least one other person. If you do that, you own it. You embody it. You literally are changed by it. So I hope you're inspired. I hope this has given you a lot of value, and I can't wait to connect with you personally and support you in having the most abundant year of your life.
Wow. Double wow. All I can say is thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us a clear-cut roadmap. And it's just the beginning, guys.
Yes.
There's so much more that Derek has in store for you. You have no idea. So really go for it. And much love to everybody. Derek, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Much, much love to you. Bye-bye.